Anyway, so this Buddhist view, fundamental Buddhist philosophy view is everything is interdependent. And what is Buddhist conduct or practice is non-harming or non-violence. So first, His Own Dharma often says, this Buddhist view of interdependence is not just a philosophy, it's something extremely useful in a life. Like, for example, if you get angry with somebody, okay? If you get angry, really get pissed off with them. You understand the English pissed off? Which means really angry. When you get angry with somebody, really we start blaming the person. Blaming, and the neurons in our brain like to gossip, you know. They say, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible. Then more and more you think, more and more your anger grows. You understand? And you start blaming that person as being the person, the cause of. Because generally, you see, because of our own ego. Ego, by the way, there are two meanings to ego. Ego is a sense of self is okay. But sometimes when we're very selfish in a kind of a stubborn way, the tendency for us is whatever goes well with us is our doing. Whatever goes wrong is often someone else's fault. Else's fault, really. The great masters often say that's really true. We kind of think that. We take credit for all the good things, bad things, we blame others. So we blame others and we get really angry and use that as a target of our anger. But that, when you do that, is actually we're not looking at the whole picture. We're just looking at only a particular, cause but if you really look from the Buddhist point of view of interdependence, and if you look, there are many cause and conditions. Many cause and conditions. Things are not that simple. You understand? Many cause and conditions. If you really look very seriously, very fairly, if you look, there are many cause and conditions. This particular situation, event, came not only but because of this particular person. It might be that you yourself will be also responsible to a certain extent, but we don't like to think about that. We just blame others. But when you really come to reason and start reflecting on, really trying to look at it from the bigger picture. Bigger picture is very important, by the way. It's very important not to be limited, not to be narrow. You understand? To be open. Openness is the greatest protection. Really, openness is a great protection. If you close your heart, it will hurt you and hurt others. Do you understand? Very much also, being kind of seeing small things, being petty, is what brings really trouble in the world. We must have the larger picture. Really, we must try to, especially as younger people. You're the future of the world. And the times now are even more challenging than before. It's for us, therefore, to bring a change. Some prophecies say, this year 2012, in December the 21st, is going to be the end of the world. There was a movie about that also. But actually, some say that the prophecy, if you look at it in a different way, it may indicate to a time of transformation, need for us to transform, bringing end to a particular way of thinking. We hope that is, and that can perhaps save the world. You understand? So very much, you see, we are all very powerful. We can effect change. And so, anyway, so when you look from a bigger point of view, you realize that, you see, you yourself may be to be blamed. And this particular person is just a small part of the jigsaw puzzle. And then when you start realizing that then your anger or your anger begin to diminish. You understand? And the reason return, sanity comes back. Otherwise, in the fit of anger, we become insane. As the great masters, and Dalai Lama often quote this, he says, do not sacrifice your long-term benefit with short-term pleasure. You got it? Do not sacrifice your long-term benefit with short-term pleasure. That means if it's in the fit of anger or jealousy, if you really take a knife and start stabbing somebody, okay, at that moment it gives you certain pleasure, certain satisfaction. Ooh. Yeah, like courage, But then what happens? Your life is ruined. See the consequences. Always see the consequences of action. Be spontaneous, but also see the consequences of action. Consequences, Yeah. Be wise. Be intelligent. So when you start seeing things from a bigger picture and you realize the interdependence of circumstance situations, then you see anger or the violence inside it diminishes. So bring about, therefore, non-harming or the disarmament, inner disarmament. You understand? Very much. And so that will inspire naturally into non-harming. So on the other hand, of course, very important thing is to really develop, as I said earlier, the most important, develop good heart. As the great Tibetan Lamas always say, if you cannot help, at least don't harm. Don't keep malice or hate in your heart. Instead, very much develop good heart. There was a very great master in the 11th century. He came from India. He was a great, great master of compassion. Teaching on compassion, lineage of what's called Lojong, training with the mind and compassion, he was one of the forefathers, a great, great master. He's like the Dalai Lama follows very much his line. He, now forgot what I want to say about him. Yes, now I remember. So, he said, or he used to always, whenever he greet people, normally we say, how are you? How's your health? How's your family? How's your dog? How's your cat? In England, you say, how's the weather? Always. But he always used to ask, whenever maybe he said, how's your good heart today? How's your good heart today? Because most important thing is good heart. And we all have it. And we must learn to develop that good heart. In our tradition, in the Buddhist tradition of Tibet, what we value most is not just intelligence or one's cleverness, but most of what we regard is good heart. Somebody is a good person. Somebody has really got good heart. Is someone that is someone you can rely on. But also in Buddhism, when you talk about compassion, compassion not just merely empathy, not just heart only, it's also reason. Has a very highly cognitive component. So it's both reason, both empathy and reason. It's like almost like someone who is very well-meaning, kind, and good person, along with somebody who's very practical and wise. If you put the two together, the combination is quite amazing. I can't remember, but I think Nelson Mandela once said, good heart and good head are a very powerful kind of combination, he said. I didn't remember his quote exactly. So most important is developing good heart or being kind. You understand? And also kind to yourself. Very important. And one thing I want to say about compassion, very simply. This is really His Holiness Dalai Lama often says that, whenever you just think of yourself, only yourself, what happens? We get caught up in this claustrophobic self, where you not only end up not being happy, but you start blaming others and shirking responsibility. Whereas on the other hand, if you start working for the benefit of others, it's amazing is that your own welfare is taken care of as a matter of course. That means when you start helping others, your own welfare is taken care of as a matter of course. You feel much better. So therefore, helping others is the most wonderful thing for yourself. That's why the great Buddhist saint called Shantideva, great bodhisattva, master of compassion, whose revelation called Bodhicaya Avatara, Chanchu Simbe Chobala Jupa, just for the fun we're saying Tibetan words, okay, Sanskrit words. In English is the guide to the Bodhisattva way of life, is really the guide and manual for compassion. Is what His Holiness Dalai Lama trained from young. And he often says, if anything I learned about compassion and about bodhicitta, which bodhicitta means the enlightened heart or mind, which is when compassion, when it develops to a greater level and with vision and courage, it becomes what is called bodhicitta. So on this great master, he says, if anything I've learned about compassion or bodhicitta, he says, I owe entirely to the work of this great master, Shantideva. He said, the very famous statement he made, says, all the happiness there is in this world, comes from thinking of others. All the suffering there is in this world comes from thinking of oneself only. You understand?